All right, today we're jumping right into this incredible story about a man named Jacob, whose entire identity was literally transformed overnight. We're going to explore how a devastating wound didn't just hurt him, but actually became the very source of his wholeness.
So let's just start with this kind of paradoxical question. Can a wound actually be a gift? I mean, it sounds completely backward, right? But stick with me, because in Jacob's story, we're going to see how the very thing that breaks us can be what remakes us.
Okay, so first things first. Let's meet the guy before all this happened. This is Jacob. And, well, to put it bluntly, his name and his reputation were built on deception. He was a trickster, he was fast, and he spent his whole life running scams, and then running from the consequences.
So this really lays it all out, doesn't it? The radical before and after of his life. On one side, you've got Jacob, the deceiver. His whole world revolves around his own speed and cunning. And on the other, a total 180. You get Israel, he who strives with God, defined by something completely different: struggle and dependency. This is the journey we're about to unpack.
You know, the core of Jacob's problem was this: total, unshakable self-sufficiency. He truly believed his own mind and his own 2 feet were all he needed to get what he wanted in the world. He was the master of his own destiny, and this self-reliance, well, it was both his greatest asset and his most profound weakness. And that brings us to the climax of his story. Picture this: a single, mysterious night at a place called Peniel. Jacob's on the run again. He's totally alone, and he's about to face a confrontation that will change absolutely everything. This isn't just a fight, it's the turning point of his entire existence. The story goes that he wrestled all night long with this mysterious, nameless figure. And we're not talking about a quick brawl. No, this was an enduring, exhausting struggle against an opponent he couldn't even identify, but one he absolutely refused to let go of. And then, just as dawn is breaking, the moment arrives. His opponent strikes him. Not in the arm, not in the head, but in the hip. The very source of his power, his speed, his ability to run and escape, is broken. In an instant, his greatest strength is taken away from him. Now, you've got to be wondering, why would this happen? Well, our source material offers this really profound insight. It frames the event not as an attack, but as a surgical breaking. Think of it less like a punishment and more like a necessary life-saving operation. So here's the crucial point, the absolute key to the whole story. The wound wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of love. It was a deliberate breaking, meant to transform a soul from a destructive self-reliance to a life-giving dependency. And here's how that surgical metaphor plays out. Step 1, the diagnosis, a crippling case of self-sufficiency. Step 2, the procedure, a divine breaking, targeting his ability to run. And step 3, the prognosis, a new identity, one defined by a lifelong divine dependency.
So what was the outcome of this divine surgery? Well, Jacob leaves this encounter fundamentally changed. He walks away with 2 new things he didn't have before: a new name and a permanent limp.
His new name is Israel, and its meaning is everything. He's no longer Jacob, the deceiver. He is now he who strives with God. His identity is no longer rooted in his own clever schemes, but in his relationship and his honest struggle with the divine. And the limp? That was the permanent physical reminder of this new identity. Just think about it. Every single step he took for the rest of his life would remind him that his old way of running was gone. He was forced to lean, to depend on something other than his own speed. He had no choice but to face forward.
So, what can we all take away from this? This ancient story taps into a universal truth about growth. It suggests that true strength isn't found in being unbreakable, but in how we're remade after we've been broken.
This really summarizes the fundamental shifts. He moves from total self-sufficiency to a healthy dependency, from just relying on his own cunning to actually relying on his character. And maybe most importantly, he stopped running away and finally learned to face forward, limp and all.
So the ultimate message here is pretty incredible. The wound became a gift. The very thing that made Jacob vulnerable, his inability to run, is what forced him to become a man of integrity and faith. It proves that sometimes our greatest vulnerabilities can become the pathways to our greatest strengths.
And that leaves us with a question to really think about.
What limp in your own life, that past wound or vulnerability you carry, might not be a weakness, but actually an invitation to a stronger identity? What if your breaking point is actually the beginning of your breakthrough?